I didn't plan on crying on a back road 3 days before Christmas. But there I was. Hands locked on the steering wheel, wipers fighting a losing battle against the snow. My rental SUV half slid into a drift, and that tight, hot ache building behind my eyes. Perfect, I whispered. Just perfect. The highway was miles behind me. The last town even farther. Out here there was only white sky, white fields, white wind that came at the windshield sideways, like it had a personal grudge. I'd taken the turn because the GPS chirped in that cheerful, bossy voice, turn right in 200 feet, like it knew anything about prairie winters. I should have stayed on the main road. I should have stayed in the city. I should have stayed in the life I'd worked myself into the ground for, except that life had crumbled too. The burnout. The breakup. The way my boss had looked at me like I was replaceable when I walked out. So here I was, heading for my grandmother's old cabin outside of Cold Ridge, Montana, chasing the one place that had ever felt like quiet. The wheels spun uselessly when I tried to reverse. The whole SUV shuddered and slid a little deeper into the ditch. "Come on," I muttered. "Please." It didn't care. The clock on the dash glowed a soft blue. Just after 5, but winter had already pulled the darkness down over everything. The snow reflected the little light left, turning the world into some kind of blizzard snow globe. I was debating whether to cry or punch the steering wheel when a shape appeared in the rearview mirror. At first I thought it was just a trick of the snow, a shadow, a branch, something. But then it moved with purpose, solid and slow, coming up the road behind me, a pickup, old by the look of it. Big dark, with a blocky front end and a light bar glowing dim amber through the storm. It rolled closer, tires biting into the snow like it was nothing. Relief hit me so hard it was almost dizzying. "Thank you," I whispered, to whoever might be listening. "Please let them be nice and not like serial killers." The truck eased to a stop behind my SUV, engine rumbling low. Headlights cut through the snow and lit up the ditch, my stuck tires, the side of the road. The driver's door opened. He climbed down like the cold didn't bother him. Tall, broad shoulders under a dark canvas jacket dusted with snow. Hat pulled low, brim catching the flakes. Jeans, worn but steady over long legs. He moved like somebody who knew exactly where his feet were, even when he couldn't see them. He stepped up to my window and rapped his knuckles lightly against the glass. I rolled it down a few inches, a blast of air rushing in sharp, dry, and bitter cold. "You all right in there?" His voice was deep, rough around the edges but not unkind. I swallowed. Define all right. One side of his mouth quirked. Just a little. "Warm enough?" he corrected. "Hurt? You stuck or just sightseeing?" "Definitely stuck." I glanced toward the ditch. "The GPS told me this road was faster." "I think the GPS is a liar." "Yeah, she does that." He leaned a little closer, squinting through the snow at my front tire. "You spun yourself down good. Is that the professional term?" "Sure." He tipped his head toward the SUV. "You mind if I open the door and take a better look?" "Promise I'm not here to murder you." I huffed out a breath that was almost a laugh, nerves buzzing under my skin. "You realize actual murderers never say that, right?" "Guess you'll have to trust me then." There was something about the way he said it. Simple. Calm. Like he wasn't trying to charm me, just stating a fact. I unlocked the door. He opened it carefully, blocking some of the wind with his body. Up close, the cold seemed to roll off him like he'd been outside all day, and his blood had just decided this was normal. He smelled like snow and leather and wood smoke. "Name's Cade," he said. "You?" "Lena." My voice caught on the first syllable. "I'm Lena Carter." "Well, Lena Carter, you picked a fine night for a back road drive." He crouched by the front tire, gloved hand brushing snow away, then moved to check the rear. I tried not to stare, but he filled up the space, somehow. Like the storm bent around him instead of through him. "Four-wheel drive?" he asked. "It's a rental," I said helplessly. I pushed the button with the little car and the wiggly lines, "So I think so." I heard the ghost of a chuckle. "All right." He stood again, hat brim dusted white, eyes a deep steady hazel that caught the reflection of my headlights. If I hook a chain to your front end and pull, I might get you out of here. But this stretch isn't plowed for another couple hours, and that wind's only getting meaner. I glanced at the wall of white beyond my hood. The idea of driving farther into it made my chest tighten. I'm supposed to get to Willow Creek Road, I said. My grandmother's old place. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. The Carter cabin? Up on the ridge? I blinked. Yeah, you know it. Everybody around here knows it. He tilted his head toward his truck. I've got a line shack about a mile from here. Wood stove. Cots. I was headed there to ride out the worst of this. My city brain flickered through every warning poster I'd ever seen. Don't go with strangers. Don't get in strange trucks. Don't trust men you just met on deserted roads. But my gut did a different kind of math. The way he moved. The way he kept his voice easy, his hands visible. How he'd offered options, not orders. How he'd mentioned the Carter cabin like it was something he respected. How far is your place? I asked quietly. About a mile, he repeated. Cabin's small, basic, but it's warm, and the roof doesn't leak. And if we tow my car now? He looked at the sky. Snow swirling in the dark. Best case, we fight our way up to your road, and hope it's not drifted shut yet. Worst case. He met my eyes. We both end up in the ditch, and I've got 2 problems instead of 1. High praise. He stepped back. Grab whatever you need for the night. I'll throw some sand under your tires before we go so you're not iced in come morning. I shoved my bag over my shoulder, grabbed my phone and charger, my grandmother's old flannel blanket I'd brought from the back seat. I hesitated once, hand on the steering wheel, then forced myself to let go. Outside, the snow knifed at my cheeks. Cade waited, not hovering, just there, solid as a fence post. He led the way to his truck, one hand automatically hovering near my elbow when we hit a patch of ice. The touch was light, barely there. But something inside my chest tightened anyway. Some small, startled place that had forgotten what it felt like to have someone steady you before you fell. Inside the truck, the warmth was immediate dry heat blasting from the vents, the faint scent of coffee in the air. A thermos sat in the cup holder between us. A paper bag with some kind of bakery logo crinkled on the dash. He pulled back onto the narrow road like visibility wasn't a problem at all. Hands easy on the wheel. Shoulders loose. You from around here? He asked after a minute. Used to be. I watched the wipers push snow aside. Summers and a couple Christmases at my grandmother's place. We moved when I was 12. I haven't been back in years. City now? Denver. The word tasted tired. What brings you out in this mess? His tone was curious, not nosy. I breathed out slowly. New start, I guess. He nodded, like that made perfect sense. Christmas is as good a time as any. We passed a fence line half buried in snow, the posts just dark edges against the white. You? I asked, more to fill the quiet than anything. You always wander around in blizzards rescuing strangers, or is this a special occasion? He huffed out that almost laugh again. Somebody's got to keep an eye on these roads. Sheriff's short-staffed. Plows get backed up. It looked like a place that knew how to hold out against winter. Cade parked close to the door, engine still running. He grabbed a lantern from behind the seat, lit it with a practiced flick, then opened his door. "Stay put a second," he said. "Let me knock some of this snow down." He disappeared into the storm. A moment later, I heard the dull thud of boots on wooden steps, the heavier boom of him clearing snow off the porch. Then the cabin door creaked, light spilled out golden and warm against the blue-white storm, and something in me broke a little. Not in a bad way. In that way where you suddenly realize how tight you've been wound. If this were a story someone else was telling, this is where I'd lean in and whisper, "If you want to know what waits in that lantern light, stay a little longer with us. Don't leave the truck just yet," but it was my story. And the cold was already reaching under my jeans. "Come on, Lena," I muttered to myself. "You wanted a quieter life. This is as quiet as it gets." I opened the door. A stack of split logs sat beside it, neat and generous. A kettle already steamed on top, the faint smell of coffee and pine hanging in the air. He crossed to the stove, nudged a log, then opened the firebox, and added another piece of wood with the easy care of a man who'd done it every day of his life. The light from the fire painted his face in soft gold, shadows deepening the lines at the corners of his eyes. For a moment he looked older than I'd first thought, not in a tired way. In a lived way. "You want coffee?" he asked. "As long as it's not decaf." That got me a real smile, small but bright, like a candle in storm dark. "No danger of that," he said. He poured from the kettle into 2 chipped enamel mugs, added a splash from a small tin on the shelf, then slid one across the table toward me. I wrapped my hands around it. The warmth sank into my fingers, up my arms, into my chest. "So," I said after a sip. Wasn't expecting company, but around here it never hurts to be ready. "Lena." He said my name like it was a word he respected. "You did good stopping when you did. I thought I was the one rescuing you," I said, half teasing. "How you figure that?" "You were on the side of the road first," I pointed out. "Technically, you were the stranded cowboy." He huffed, shaking his head. "I wasn't stranded," he said. "I was checking adrift. But if it makes you feel better, you can tell folks you saved me." "I might." "Get some food in you first before you start exaggerating the stories," he said lightly. "I've got chili in the cooler." Chili in a cooler in a blizzard? I arched a brow. Isn't the whole world a cooler right now? "Cabin gets warm," he said. "And frozen chili doesn't heat well." Learned that the hard way. He moved around the small space with quiet efficiency, lifting the lid off a cast iron pot, dumping in the contents of a plastic container, setting it on the stove. Neighbor lady did. He gave me that half smile again. I fix her fence. She feeds me. Works out fine. There was something in the way he said it that made me file it away. A door I wasn't invited through yet? And the rest? He asked softly. The person everyone else liked except you? I swallowed, the chili scent mixing with the sting behind my eyes. Engagement fell apart last year, I said. We were supposed to get married at Christmas. He decided he wanted something different. If you were staying in a life that hurt, the words landed gentle but firm, not judgment, just truth. I hate that you're right, I muttered. He gave another one of those small smiles. Storm will pass, he said, nodding toward the window. They always do. Good to have a solid roof over your head when it does. Is that a weather metaphor or a life thing? I asked. Both, I guess. We ate chili at the small table, the spoons clinking soft against the bowls. So, I said when we'd finished, you know my grandmother's cabin, you know the roads. I'm guessing you're not just some random drifter with chili in a cooler. Nope. He leaned back in his chair, one ankle hooking over his opposite knee. Family's been on this land since my great-granddad decided he could handle the winters. The words settled somewhere deep inside me, in that hollow, aching place I'd been trying not to look at. Do you ever get tired? I asked before I could stop myself. Of being the one who shows up, the dependable one? His gaze came back to mine, steady and clear. Every now and then, he admitted. But it beats being the one folks can't count on. Yeah, I knew that kind of tired too. Doesn't have to. I watched him spread a blanket on the floor next to the stove, using his rolled-up jacket as a pillow. It couldn't have been comfortable, but he moved like a man who'd slept harder places. You don't have to be this chivalrous, I said, sitting on the edge of the cot. We're both adults. We can share or... Lena, he cut me off gently. You've had a long day. You're a long way from home. You trusted a stranger on a dark road. Let me make one thing easy tonight. The words were simple, but they wrapped around me like another blanket. I lay down, the wool scratchy against my cheek, the distant hiss of wind mingling with the soft crackle of the fire. In the half-dark, I watched his silhouette by the stove, the rise and fall of his chest, one arm thrown over his eyes. He seemed bigger somehow, laid out like that. Not just in size, but in presence. Safe, the kind of safe I'd almost forgotten existed. Not because everything was perfect, but because someone else was awake to the danger. My eyes burned again, this time with something softer. Cade? I whispered. He lifted his arm, eyes catching the firelight. Yeah? Thank you. For all of this. He held my gaze for a long heartbeat. Get some sleep, Lena, he said softly. You don't have to spend this Christmas proving you're okay. The words slid right into the center of me, like he'd found that hollow place and dropped a candle inside. I fell asleep to the sound of the storm raging outside and the gentle rhythm of his breathing, feeling, for the first time in a long time, like if the world fell apart a little more, I wouldn't be facing it alone. Morning came slow and pale. I woke to the smell of coffee and the soft scrape of metal against metal. For a disorienting second, I thought I was back in my tiny Denver apartment, the upstairs neighbor banging around. Then the wood stove popped. The cabin walls came into focus, and I remembered Storm, ditch-stranded cowboy who apparently wasn't stranded at all. Cade stood by the stove, back to me, pouring batter into a skillet on the hot plate. Sunlight pushed weakly through the frost-laced window, turning his breath into faint clouds. You make pancakes and line checks now? I croaked. Good morning to you too. He glanced over his shoulder. How's the head? Fine. I pushed myself upright, blankets sliding into my lap. How's the floor? Head worse. He flipped a pancake with an easy wrist. Storms eased up some. Plows went by about an hour ago. Once you eat, we'll go dig your rig out and get you up to the cabin. Cabin, I repeated, nerves and a little thrill sparking together in my chest. I keep forgetting that's real. It's been so long since I've been there. You'll remember quick enough. He slid a plate toward me. Eat up. Roads still slick. The pancakes were simple and perfect, crispy at the edges, soft in the middle, soaked with butter and a drizzle of maple syrup from a dented tin. You always this prepared? I asked around a mouthful. Chili, coffee, pancakes. It's like an Airbnb for snowstorms. Can't eat frozen fence posts, he said. Figure if I'm out here, I might as well be comfortable. He washed the dishes while I pulled on my boots and jacket. When we stepped outside, the world had transformed. The sky was a bright, brittle blue. The fields on either side of the lane were smooth waves of snow, sparkling in the sunlight. The wind had calmed to a light, persistent breath. It was so beautiful it hurt a little. Cade walked ahead, boots crunching, shoulders squared against the cold. My gaze snagged on him, on the way he seemed to fit into the landscape so completely. On the way, his shadow stretched long and sure across the brightness. We reached my SUV quicker than I expected. It sat where we'd left it, iced over but not buried, thanks to his late-night sand and the way the drifts had chosen the other side of the road instead. Moment of truth, he said, brushing snow off the hood. Let's see if she wants to live another day. She did. The engine coughed, then settled into a steady hum. He nodded, satisfied. Good girl. Are you talking to my car? I asked. She seems sensitive, he deadpanned. Didn't want to hurt her feelings. I laughed, the sound puffing white in the cold. Follow me up, he said. Go slow. If you start to slide, let off the gas and steer into it. Don't fight it. Steer into the slide, I repeated. Got it. He watched me climb in, waited until I was buckled and the heater was blowing lukewarm air, then jogged back to his own truck. The next 20 minutes were careful, intense, and oddly peaceful. I kept my eyes on the back of his truck. On the way his tires found the tracks left by the plow. The sun glittered off the drifts, the world stretching white and endless around us. When we turned onto Willow Creek Road, my heart gave an unexpected leap. I recognized the line of cottonwoods, bare branches black against the snow. I recognized the little wooden sign half buried at the turnoff, Carter painted in my grandfather's shaky hand. We climbed slowly, the road narrower, the banks higher. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It was smaller than I remembered. Cade came back to the SUV, tapped the hood lightly, then gestured toward the cabin. "Welcome home," he said, when I opened the door. The words hit me harder than I expected. "Who put the wreath up?" I asked, voice unsteady. I didn't. "Neighbor down the road," he said. "Edna. She keeps an eye on empty places. When I told her someone was comin', she said the cabin shouldn't greet you bare." Of course she did. Edna had been my grandmother's best friend. She'd made gingerbread cookies and knitted me a scarf one winter. I swallowed past the lump. "Do you need to get back?" I asked Cade. "You've already done so much." "I don't want to keep you." "I've got some time," he said calmly. "Let's make sure the pipes aren't frozen and the heat still works before I head out." The living room was exactly as I remembered. Same stone fireplace. Same threadbare couch. Same wooden rocking chair by the window. Same crooked shelf with the row of ceramic snowmen I'd insisted on leaving up all year one summer. I stood in the doorway, snow melting off my boots, feeling 12 and 32 all at once. "You okay?" Kate asked quietly, hanging back in the entry. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. He nodded once like that was a perfectly acceptable answer. He moved past me after a minute, heading straight for the small hallway, flipping light switches as he went. "You're not," he said. "You're walking back into yours." I hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I said. 6 o'clock. Yeah? You don't owe anybody explanations tonight. His gaze was steady. Show up. Breathe. Are you always this annoyingly wise? I asked. Only in blizzards and at Christmas, he said. When he left, the cabin felt bigger, echoey. The silence was almost too loud. I wandered from room to room, fingertips tracing familiar edges. The kitchen counter where my grandmother had rolled out pie crust. I pressed it to my face, breathing in dust and memory. I noticed the way kids didn't hesitate to run up to him, tug at his sleeve, jabber about sled hills. Kate introduced me to people whose names I didn't remember but whose faces sparked little flashes of childhood. The pastor from the church, the woman who ran the feed store now, a teenage girl who managed the coffee cart and looked at Kate with wide eyes, then at me with barely concealed curiosity. "It's a small town," I murmured to him at one point, cheeks aching from smiling. "Gossip travels faster than the plow trucks," he agreed. "You get used to it. They're all looking at you," I added. "They always look at me," he said. "I'm usually the one folks call when something breaks." "What exactly is it you do?" I asked, annoyed with myself for not knowing already. He hesitated, then gestured down the street toward a cluster of men near a truck with a logo on the side. "Come on," he said. "Might as well show you." We walked to the end of the block where a big black pickup idled by the curb. It gleamed under the streetlights, clean and intimidating in a way farm trucks rarely were. A couple more dark trucks were parked a short distance down, logos matching. A man in a heavy jacket and beanie looked up as we approached. Relief flashed across his face so quickly I almost missed it. "Boss," he said. "We were just talking about you." "Try not to," Cade said mildly. "You'll give yourselves headaches." "How's the south fence line?" "Held up fine," the man said. "We patched the gap from last week. I've got the guys on overtime." "Good," Cade nodded. "Appreciate it." Another man stepped forward, adjusting his gloves. "The hauler from Billings called," he said. "They're delayed till morning. Black ice on the interstate." "All right," Cade's jaw tightened, just a fraction. "We'll shift the schedule. Have the crew meet at the north lot at 6 instead of 4. "You got it, boss." That word again. Boss. The men were dressed like ranch hands but moved like something more organized. Their jackets all had the same stitched emblem, a stylized yo over a mountain line. My stomach did a little flip. I'd assumed he was just a guy. A cowboy who checked fence lines and helped stranded drivers. But stranded cowboys didn't usually roll with branded fleets and crews that called them boss. Cade turned back to me, clearly catching the look on my face. "What?" he asked. "You're..." I gestured helplessly toward the trucks. "You're in charge of the ranch?" He gave a small nod. "Yeah, Walker Ridge is mine." "Walker? That's you?" I asked. "Walker Ridge Ranch?" "Last I checked." He shifted his hat, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "My granddad started it. Dad expanded it. I'm just trying not to run it into the ground. But those trucks..." I lowered my voice. "You look like some kind of ranch mafia." That startled a real laugh out of him, loud and warm enough that a couple of his men glanced over, surprised. "Ranch mafia," he repeated. "That's a new one. I thought I saved a stranded cowboy," I said, mock-wounded. "Turns out I picked up the local cattle boss." "You did save me," he said, the humor fading into something softer. "Could V frozen my rear off in that ditch last night if you decided to keep driven?" "You were checking drifts," I reminded him. "And then you showed up," he said simply. "And I wasn't alone anymore." That counts as saving in my book. The words lodged in my chest. It wasn't just that I wasn't the only one who needed rescuing last night. It was the way he said alone. Like it wasn't about the storm at all. If you were listening to this part of my night through headphones, wrapped up in your own blanket somewhere, this is where I'd probably ask you, soft and curious, tell me in the comments. Would you trust him yet, if you were in my boots? Or would those black trucks scare you off? Because standing there with his men nodding respectfully, the trucks humming quietly, and Christmas lights reflecting off the snow, I realized something that made my head spin a little. He wasn't just some cowboy. He was the one everyone else depended on. And he'd spent the whole last 24 hours making sure I was okay. The church service after the market was simple and lovely. Candles in the windows. A garland of pine boughs around the front. Kids in 2 big angel costumes fidgeting in the front pew. I sat between Kate and Edna, the red scarf warm around my neck. When the congregation sang, "O Come, All the Faithful," the notes rose up around me, soft and a little off-key, and something inside my chest cracked, just a tiny bit. I remembered standing in the same sanctuary as a child, feet not touching the floor, swinging my legs under the pew while my grandmother's voice rose beside me. I remembered last Christmas, sitting in the back of a massive downtown church, anonymous and numb, the music bouncing off marble and glass but not quite reaching me. This felt different, smaller, realer, like every voice mattered. At one point, during a quiet moment of prayer, Cade's hand brushed mine on the pew. I didn't look at him, afraid that if I did I'd cry. But his fingers curled gently around mine, warm and rough. He didn't squeeze. Didn't try to send any message beyond simple presence. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. The crazy part was, I believed him. After the service, we stepped out into the cold again, breath puffing in little clouds. The stars had come out, sharp and bright in the clear winter sky. Cade walked me back to his truck, our boots crunching on the hard-packed snow. "You all right?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said, surprising myself. "No, I don't know. That seems to be my theme this week." He smiled a little. "Church at Christmas can stir things up," he said. "Memories, regrets, hopes you didn't realize you still had." "What about you?" I asked. "What does it stir up for you?" He was quiet for a long moment, opening the truck door, letting me climb in. When he slid behind the wheel, he didn't start the engine right away. "Last Christmas," he said finally, voice low, "my dad was in that front pew. This year, he's not. I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Stroke in March," he said. "Sudden, quick. Doctor said it was the best way to go. Didn't feel like that to me. I can't imagine. Dad loved this season." Cade's fingers tightened briefly on the steering wheel. He'd drive the long way home just to see the lights. Brought coffee to the plow guys. Handed out bonuses right before Christmas Eve. He shrugged one shoulder. "This year, I'm the one handing out the envelopes. And you hate it." I said it gently. He huffed out a breath. "I hate that it's me and not him," he admitted. "Hate that the ranch still needs things done when all I wanted to do for a while was sit on the porch and listen for a truck that wasn't a-comin' back." My throat burned. "You could have given up," I said. "Sold the place. Walked away. Thought about it." He finally turned the key, engine rumbling to life. "But then I'd drive past the south pasture and see kids sledding on the hill my granddad cleared. Or I'd get a call in the middle of the night when somebody's cow got out on the highway. And I'd realize this place isn't just ours. It belongs to all the folks who lean on it, even if they don't know it." "It sounds heavy," I said. "Some days." He gave me a sideways glance, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Some days it's just a lot of beautiful sky and stupid cows." I laughed, the sound wet. "And you?" he added. "What does Christmas stir up for you?" "Last year," I said, staring at the dashboard, "I was supposed to get married on Christmas Eve." He didn't say anything. Just let the words sit between us. "We'd planned this whole snowy, magical ceremony," I continued. "Lights and candles and a tree in the church. My mom cried happy tears over my dress. I wrote vows that made me cry." I swallowed. "He told me he couldn't do it 2 weeks before the wedding," I said. Just looked at me across our kitchen table and said he wasn't too sure he believed in forever with me. A small, helpless laugh escaped. Imagine hearing that from someone you thought was your safe place. Cade's jaw clenched, muscles ticking. "He's an idiot," he said. "Maybe." I wiped under one eye with my glove. Or maybe he just saw something I didn't want to see yet. How much of myself I twisted to fit his life. Silence fell again. But it was a different kind this time. Not heavy. Just full. "I've spent all year trying to prove I didn't need him," I admitted. "Working more. Saying yes to everything. Showing up to every party, every project. Smiling like it didn't hurt." I turned my head to look at him. I don't think I was living a life. I think I was performing one. His eyes met mine, steady and warm. "And now?" he asked. "Now I'm sitting in a truck with a cowboy who owns half the county and makes pancakes in a shack," I said. "So I'd say things have gotten weird." He snorted. "Fair enough." The humor faded though. as we held each other's gaze. I don't want to perform anymore, I said quietly. I want to live. Even if it's smaller, quieter, even if the only people who notice are the ones in this town. That's not small, he said. That's real. The word sank into me like a stone into a lake, ripples spreading out. Real, not polished, not curated, not optimized. Just lived. He drove me back to the cabin, headlights slicing through the dark. When he pulled up in front, he didn't turn the engine off right away. Snow fell again, softer this time. Just a dusting. You're coming to the town dance tomorrow, right? He asked. The what now? Christmas dance. Community hall. We push back the chairs and pretend we remember the steps to songs older than our grandparents. His lips curved. Edna already bought a dress. You not showing up would be an insult. Threatening me with Edna is low, I said. Effective though. I hesitated, then nodded. I'll come, I said. As long as you promise to dance at least one dance with me so I don't stand in the corner like a lost ghost. He held my gaze, eyes warming. I was already planning on crossing that room for you, he said softly. Even if the whole town watches. Heat rose to my cheeks. Something shifted between us, then small but unmistakable. A thread tightening. A door opening wider. If this were some late-night story on a channel called Cowboy Christmas Nights, I thought. Heart thudding. This is exactly where I'd whisper. If you want to hear what he says when he finally pulls you into his arms on that dance floor. Don't forget to subscribe, because that moment's coming. You can feel it, can't you? But in my actual life, all I could do was swallow, open the truck door, and step down into the snow. Good night, Cade, I said. Night, Lena. His voice followed me up the steps, warm as the light spilling from the cabin door. I'm a phone call away if anything goes sideways. I believed him. Maybe more than I'd believed in anything in a long time. Because of space, I can't pour out the entire 25,000-word night we're heading into, but let me carry you through the rest of our Christmas arc, all the way to the porch light at the end. The dance the next night was exactly what he promised. The community hall smelled like coffee, pine, and floor wax. Strings of lights crisscrossed the ceiling, and a local band played old country songs that made the older couples smile in a way that belonged to them. When we walked in, Cade's hand at the small of my back, heads turned. Conversations dipped, then rose again with a new hum of energy that made my cheeks flush. He didn't hesitate. He didn't leave me at the edge of the room. He took my hand and led me straight to the middle of the floor as a slow song started. You sure about this? I whispered, suddenly shy. Pretty sure, he said. Been thinking about it since last night. He set one hand at my waist, calloused palm warm even through my sweater. My other hand rested on his shoulder. We started to sway. My heart did that strange, painful soft thing again. Like it was thawing too fast. We moved slow, turning in a small circle. The band sang about a love that lasted through seasons, through storms. You dance well, I murmured. Don't tell anyone, he said. I've got a reputation to maintain. What kind of reputation? The kind where folks think I'm only good with cattle and fence posts, not people. I rested my cheek lightly against his chest, listening to the steady thump of his heart under the rhythm of the song. You're good with people, I said quietly. In a way that actually matters. He didn't answer with words. His hand just tightened slightly at my waist, drawing me closer. It was a slow burn that night. Small moments. Him getting me punch and bringing an extra napkin without being asked. Me laughing, for real, at something ridiculous one of the ranch hands said. Him stepping between me and an invasive ex-classmate who wanted gossip more than conversation. Later, near the end of the evening, we stepped outside for air. The night was clear again, breath hanging in the cold. Lights from inside spilled golden rectangles onto the snow. Thank you, I said, pulling the red scarf tighter around my neck, for making sure I didn't haunt the punch bowl alone all night. Didn't do it for the punch, he said. Why did you do it then? He looked at me, eyes searching. Because you looked like you were finally breathing again, he said softly. Didn't want to miss that. My throat closed up. Cade, I whispered. He stepped closer just a fraction, so we shared the same small cloud of breath in the cold. I know you're still raw, he said. From the city, from him, from everything. And I'm not gonna push you faster than you want to go. He lifted a hand, fingers hovering near my cheek, asking a question without words. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about this, he murmured. You here, laughing. Walking down Main Street with my name on your scarf instead of his. I let out a shaky laugh that turned into something else. And you? He asked. Am I just your Blizzard rescue story? Something you tell your city friends about when you go back? The words hit like a small, sharp stone. Are you? I swallowed. Are you assuming I'm going back? Aren't you? His eyes searched mine. Your life's there, your job. I quit my job, I said. The day before I got in my car, I just haven't admitted that out loud yet. He blinked. Then, what does that mean? He asked quietly. It means I'm standing in the cold with a man who makes me feel more like myself than I have in years, I said, the truth spilling out on a cloud of white breath. And I'm terrified. His thumb brushed my cheek then. The barest touch. Terrified of what? He asked. Of wanting this, I whispered. Of wanting you. Of wanting this town, this cabin, this life. What if I'm not built for it anymore? What if I break it? You won't, he said, voice rough. And if you feel like you might, that's what I'm for. You lean. I'll hold. The simple certainty in his tone undid me. Tears slid hot down my cold cheeks. He caught one with his thumb, brow furrowing like it physically hurt him to see it. Can I? He started. I nodded, breath catching. He kissed me then. Soft, careful, like he was afraid of spooking a wild thing. His lips were warm and a little chapped, tasting like cinnamon and coffee. One hand stayed at my cheek, the other hovering at my waist like he'd let go the second I pulled away. I didn't pull away. The world went quiet for a moment. No music, no chatter from inside. Just the faint crunch of snow under our boots as we swayed almost imperceptibly closer. It wasn't fireworks. It was a hearth finally catching. Sparks settling into flame. A steady warmth that said, you are wanted. You are safe. You can rest here. When we parted, I exhaled shakily. Okay, I whispered. That complicates things. Yeah, he said, breath clouding the air between us. It does. The crisis came the next morning. An email pinged on my phone. A subject line from my former boss. A job offer, contract work, remote. More money than before, less stress on paper. It glowed like safety, like a lifeline. Like a ticket back to the life ID just told him I didn't want anymore. I stared at the screen in the cabin's quiet, heart pounding. You could have both, a sly voice whispered. The cowboy and the contract, the ranch and the city. You don't have to choose, you don't have to risk. Fear rose up, thick and choking. I didn't call Cade right away. I didn't go down to the ranch like we'd planned. I paced the small cabin, phone heavy in my hand, imagining spreadsheets and conference calls overlaying the view out the window. He must have felt the shift. Around noon, his truck pulled up outside. I watched from the window as he sat there for a moment, then got out and came to the door. His knock was soft but firm. Lena? He called. I opened the door halfway. Hey, I said, trying for light, failing. He scanned my face, eyes narrowing slightly. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. I lied. His jaw ticked. Try again, he said gently. I stepped back, letting him in. The cabin felt smaller with my indecision hanging in the air. My old boss emailed, I said, holding up the phone like evidence. They want me back. Sort of contract work. I could stay here, I added quickly. Work remotely. Help them with campaigns. It would solve a lot of problems. Which problems? He asked quietly. Money, purpose, identity. I laughed weakly. All the big ones. He watched me for a long moment, And create what problems? He asked. I swallowed. Cade, I whispered. What if I'm not enough for this place? For you? What if your life is too real and I'm too online? He stepped closer, hands loose at his sides. Lena, he said, you were never too much for me. You've been not enough for people who didn't to know what to do with your heart, that's true, but that's on them. Not you. Tears blurred my vision. What if I hurt you? I asked. What if I say yes to this? To us, and then panic and run when things get hard? You've already lost enough. His eyes softened in a way that made my chest ache. Love isn't a contract with guarantees, he said quietly. It's a risk, for both of us. I can't promise you it'll be easy. I can promise I'll be here. Present. Honest. I won't disappear without fighting for us. He reached out, taking my phone gently from my hand, setting it face down on the table. What do you want? He asked. Not what's safest. Not what's most impressive on paper. What makes your soul unclench when you picture it? I closed my eyes. Quiet mornings with coffee on the porch. Snow catching on empty fields. His hand on my back at church. Kids sledding down hills he'd pointed out from the truck. Edna dropping off bread and gossip. My laptop open not to endless corporate emails, but to stories I wanted to tell. Him. Always him. Solid and warm and steady at my side. This, I whispered. I want this, you, the cabin, the town, work that doesn't eat me alive. I opened my eyes, heart hammering. But I'm scared, I finished. He nodded slowly. I am too, he admitted. I've built my life around not needing anyone. Around being the one folks lean on. Letting you in means letting myself lean too. That scares me more than any blizzard. We stood there, facing each other in the old cabin that had seen so many winters. So what do we do? I asked. He smiled then. Small, real. We choose scared, he said. Together. He pulled me into his arms, holding me close, his chin resting lightly on the top of my head. I'm not gonna ask you to throw away everything you've built, he murmured. If you want that contract, take it. If you want to build something new here, I'll help. If you want to write stories about stubborn cowboys and Christmas storms, I'll bring you coffee while you type. I laughed weightly into his shirt. But I am gonna not ask you not to live your whole life with one foot out the door. He continued. Not with me. Not with this town. We deserve the full version of you, not just the safe parts. I pulled back enough to see his eyes. And you? I asked. Will you let me see the parts of you that aren't just the boss? The part that misses your dad. The part that gets tired. His throat worked. Yeah, he said. I will. It might take me a minute. But, yeah, we held each other there, the quiet of the cabin wrapping around us. Later, I sat at the table, flipped my phone over, and wrote back to my boss. Thank you for the offer. Truly. But I'm choosing a different kind of life now. One that doesn't fit in a contract. Merry Christmas. My finger hovered over send for a heartbeat. Then I chose. When I looked up, Cade was watching me from the doorway, a small, proud smile curving his mouth. You just burned a bridge, he said softly. I built a different one, I replied. To here. To him. If you've stayed with me this far through the snowstorm, the chili, the church, the dance, the fear, I hope you can feel it too. The way a quiet Christmas can shift your whole life. The way one steady man can turn a blizzard into a beginning. Our first Christmas together didn't end on that decision. It unfolded. New Year's Eve found us on the ranch porch, watching the northern lights flicker faint green on the horizon while the cows snuffled in the dark. My boxes arrived from Denver a few weeks later, and Cade carried each one into the cabin like it weighed nothing, stacking my old life in neat piles against the wall. By the next Christmas, the Carter cabin wasn't just my refuge. It was ours. There was a second mug by the sink that said World's Us Okay as Cowboy in chipped letters because I found it in a thrift store and laughed for 10 minutes. There was a shelf with my notebooks, filled with stories about women who thought they were saving cowboys and ended up being saved right back. There were hooks by the door with 2 coats, 2 scarves. His hat, my hat, side by side. We still fought sometimes. We still got scared. He still woke up some mornings missing his dad so fiercely it hurt to breathe. I still opened my laptop some days and panicked, wondering if I'd thrown away too much. But we learned to say the quiet parts out loud. To sit by the fire when Christmas songs stirred up old wounds and let tears fall safely into each other's hands. To choose each other, over and over, even when the easier thing would have been to retreat into the lives we knew how to perform. On Christmas Eve, a few years down the line, a small voice tugged at my sleeve in the church pew. "Mom," our daughter whispered, eyes big and serious. "Is this the place where you met Daddy?" "Not exactly," I whispered back, exchanging a look with Cade that made my chest ache with joy. "But it's where I realized I didn't have to be alone anymore." Cade squeezed my hand under the hymnal, that same steady warmth that had wrapped around me in a line shack years ago. And as the congregation started to sing, and the snow fell softly outside, and our little girl's breath puffed in tiny clouds when we stepped into the night, I realized something simple and true. The storm had been real. The loneliness had been real. But so was this. The lantern light in his eyes when he looked at me. The way his hand found mine in every crowd. The home we'd built, board by board, tradition by tradition, out on a ridge where once, years ago, I'd been just a stranded woman in a ditch, and he'd been just a cowboy in the snow. If you want more slow-burn cowboy Christmas nights like this, more storms that turn into beginnings, more quiet men whose hearts finally crack open under winter stars, then stick around for the next story. There's always another porch light in this little world of ours. And sometimes, all it takes is one blizzard, one brave choice, and one steady hand reaching out in the dark to change a Christmas and a life. Forever.